Namaste. I have a very special program for you. As you know, a lot of people in the United States have observed that there are many interfaith marriages. Maybe 30, 40, 50% of our people here are marrying outside the tradition, outside our faith. Not that it's a problem, but at least we ought to be conscious of it and we ought to understand it better. So I'm going to bring today a very special guest later in the show. His name is Dr. Dilip Amin, who has written an important book on interfaith marriages. And while he's a full-time research scholar in cancer research, and he's going to be coming from the West Coast by Skype, actually for the last decade he's spent much of his time pursuing this research, teaching, debating, discussing, negotiating this kind of interfaith marriage from the Hindu perspective. So I'm delighted and honored to have him on my show. Before I bring him on, I want to give a little overview, a little background, and contextualize this topic in light of my own book, Being Different. In my book, Being Different, I've discussed many issues where the Abrahamic religions and the Dharmic religions have irreconcilable differences. It's not that you can have a win-win easily. I mean, and I won't go through this, but you can watch many of my talks on Being Different and read the book. And there it becomes very clear that if two people are going to come together ideologically, they better put these issues on the table and have a very informed discussion, and then come up with some compromises or whatever they want to. I have no problem with people agreeing to whatever they want to, but with open eyes. That's all my job is. So for instance, the issues in Being Different, I've discussed that these issues of serious differences, how do people live with them, with someone? One is you accept that you are below and they are above. You have an inferiority complex or whatever, and so you resolve it by looking at it from below, and you tend to mimic and you tend to say that I'm almost like you, it's not that bad, I'm kind of like you, accept me, and I'm similar to you, and you're diluting yourself. The opposite method of reconciling is superiority, where somebody asserts their difference from above. It's almost like, okay, you're no good. And that also is a recipe for problems. And then there is a posture which says, I'll just ignore the difference. I'll pretend there is no difference, so there is no problem. What's the problem? And you come up with something very simplistic, silly kind of rationale, and in the end that doesn't really work. Then there is this conflict, that you kind of have a fight. That's a way to deal with difference also. And then another one is digestion. You kind of let the other party digest your tradition and just give you some symbolic place here and there, so you can feel okay that we also got this festival of lights. It's no longer going to be Diwali. They may call it Diwali, but it doesn't have that spiritual significance. It's sort of the festival of lights, good over evil, very abstract. It doesn't have anything Hindu in it. So you allow yourself to get digested. These are all different techniques that people have used. Now, when people are dating from one side from the Dharmic faith and the other side from the Abrahamic faith, you see, there tends to be some problems. I'm going to list some of the problems. There is this blindness due to love. Blindness, or let's just say there is so much passion and so much excitement because they're in love that they ignore, they filter out, they just don't want to, they bracket off to the side issues that may be complex and messy. They don't want to deal with them. And they're thinking of their relationship as individuals, not realizing that there's also communities, families, children will be born. There are many other issues besides just two individuals, because you are not isolated from the rest of your life, nor is the other person. And so you have to bring all your context and their context. There are holidays, there are all sorts of food habits, there are dress habits, there are there are spiritual traditions, there are practices, there are deities involved. All of that So you need to understand that the issue is not just simply two individuals being in love. Then there are, the individuals tend to be inexperienced on the complexity of what they are getting into. It's good that they want to explore and get into something interesting, but with more information, with better knowledge, the outcome may be superior. Then there is tremendous ignorance of the other person's religion. This is very serious. Hardly any Hindus I've come across have done serious Purva Paksha, or understanding the other side from a really honest, open-minded point of view. They have very kind of silly ideas that all religions are the same, is one God, no matter how you go there, all paths lead to this and that. I don't have the time to argue about this. I've done enough arguing in my talks and in my books, and I encourage you to read that, please. But these are not correct. These views are very naive and simple-minded views. Then there is this business of liberalism is a fad, especially when people are dating in college. Liberalism, pluralism, this postmodernism, that there are no boundaries. These are fads, and it's very easy to sort of become a faddish person and just slip into the trends. Now, finally, I think one of the issues, one of the things that prevents good, genuine, and mutual understanding is that people are embarrassed to talk about such things in a love affair. They are embarrassed to raise these issues with honesty and say, hey, listen, we might be spending a long time together, all our lives maybe. We ought to understand each other in more detail. And what we don't know, we should get an expert to tell us. Maybe we need to read, maybe we need to go for counseling, but we can't just ignore this. The tendency is to sort of ignore this rather than saying, let's put the things on the table and talk about it. So these are some of the issues going into a matrimonial relationship. Many conflicts occur later because they were not addressed. The problems were not addressed. The fault lines, the irreconcilable differences, or the negotiable differences were not put on the table up front with enough honesty and discussed. Okay, and so therefore they come back and haunt you. This ignoring the issues up front comes back and haunts you. I'm going to discuss it with my guest later in the show, and in his book also he's saying similar things, so I just want to prepare you with some background. The Abrahamic religions have the exclusivity. They are history-centric, as I've described. And so while it's easy for a Hindu to sort of say, okay, fine, Jesus is just another avatar, and Muhammad was just another great teacher and a prophet, but the other person is not willing to say that he was just one of many. For them, the exclusivity is very important. And for them, accepting their tradition at face value means that your tradition has to be negated. It has to be compromised. They cannot basically say that both are okay. Repudiating the other person's religion is a very important part of being a Jew, a Christian, and a Muslim in the traditional sense. So this is something you ought to understand, and therefore later, after the marriage, these problems begin to surface. Scriptures may be not possible to reconcile. I won't go through all the details of what's written here and what's written there to tell you what are some of the issues. People keep coming up with superficial agreements. Okay, it's they keep finding a quote from here which is similar to a quote from there, but that doesn't work. It's like saying an apple is the same thing as an orange, because both are round and both got some juice and both got some vitamin C and both grow on trees. Okay, there are some similarities. In a Venn diagram, you have some similarities, some overlaps between two different things, but that doesn't mean that they are identical. There are also serious differences. So we should look at the similarities. We should also look at the differences. And those differences are of a pretty substantial nature, as I have described elsewhere. Now there are mandatory do's and don'ts, yam and niyam, dharmic versus adharmic, and commandments and various rules and policies in churches. And rabbis make these interpret these in Judaism. And the Sharia is very strong in terms of do's and don'ts, what you can do, what you cannot do. So if you take a list of the do's and don'ts of the dharmic traditions, even in a very flexible way, and then you come up with the do's and don'ts of the other tradition, it is not so easy to say that everything is same and everything is harmonious. It is not so. Yes, they will agree, okay, we'll take our shoes off. And yes, they will say, okay, we'll wear a sari. Those are simple things. But there are serious differences that where one has some mandates which the other side will not accept. Okay, there are many of those. Then there are rituals, aesthetics, food habits, dress habits, family relations and so on. So all kinds of traditions, holidays, festivals, where things are not entirely compatible. And that needs to be addressed also. So these fault lines exist. It is possible to have a very harmonious interfaith relationship for life, provided you know this and your partner knows this, and you have open conversations and you put these on the table and you talk about them. You figure out what you have to be, first of all, knowledgeable in your tradition, and also very curious and eager to learn about the other side's tradition. If you are not, if you think that this doesn't matter, it won't matter, then only is there going to be a potential problem. So if you look at Judaism, I'll give you some of the issues from each of the major Abrahamic religions. None of them allow what they call idol worship, which means murti puja, worship with form, with objects, substances, images, pictures of Ram, Krishna, Durga, Kali, Shiva, etc. These are what they would consider idolatry. Okay, and you cannot just talk them out of it. A lot of these traditions have a history of fighting European paganism and African and Latin American paganism, and what they fought for was these very things. So when they see a Hindu, they feel that, hey, this guy is bringing us back to the old pagans we got rid of. So it's very difficult for them to accept and respect a kind of things that remind them of people they've defeated, conquered, suppressed, eradicated. Okay, so there are these serious issues. Then the ceremonies like bar mitzvah, for Jews, very ritualistic circumcision in Judaism, and Islam, with very strong religious meanings. These are problems and issues for people from the Hindu faith to face. In Christianity, the exclusivity of a historical Jesus repudiates other claims, other itihas from our side. Baptism and what it signifies and what it requires you to accept and how you have to reject all other things, same way. And the authority of the church as the ultimate final authority to interpret all these matters in your life and the life of your family and your children, it's a pretty tough thing that you have to understand. So in Islam, when a wedding is taking place, it's called nikah, and the nikah can only be done between two Muslims. So if a Muslim is doing the marriage with a non-Muslim, then before the nikah there is a preamble of conversion. The conversion is a preamble. Whether you know it or not, you are actually saying, I'm denouncing my faith, I'm denouncing everything else I believed in until this point in time. I will not be doing those things anymore, and I'm going to become a Muslim from now on, and I accept all the articles of Islam and blah blah blah. So if you are doing a nikah if a Hindu is doing a nikah with a Muslim person, please know that you cease to be a Hindu after that ceremony is over. You are not allowed to say we are both this one, that one, and so on. Okay, that doesn't work. Now let me show you a few things to illustrate some of the issues that may come up and how different people have dealt with these issues. Let's look at the Khans. We look at Shah Rukh Khan, the Amir Khan, and Saif Ali Khan. Let's look at these Khans of Bollywood, big icons, and discuss how each of them marrying a Hindu, how it has worked out. So first video clip I want you to see concerns Shah Rukh Khan. Let's hear this. Let's watch this video.
Children should know about value of God, whether it's a Hindu God or a Muslim God. So next to Ganesha and Lakshmi, we have the Quran also there, and we put our hands together and say the Gayatri Mantra, which my son says, and I say Bismillah.
Okay, so this is the most liberal of the three examples that I'm going to show you. But notice even here, he says his son can do all these things with Hindu stuff, but he himself is going to say Bismillah. He is not going to say, Lord Ganesh or Shiva or in the worship. When the Hindus are worshipping, Krishna or Shiva or some Ganesh, the Muslim is, even the liberal Muslim in him is going to substitute Bismillah. That is his view. So this business of all of them are same doesn't work, because if they're all the same, why wouldn't he say Shiva? Why wouldn't he say Ganesh? If they are the same, how does it matter? So it does matter. Okay. So now the second example is Saif Ali Khan. Before we see the example, I want you to know he is the son of Sharmila Tagore. His first marriage was with a Hindu, and he required her to convert. She had to convert to being a Muslim. After a while, they had a divorce. So then Saif Ali Khan married a second time. Now it is from the famous Kapoor family, from the famous, Raj Kapoor, Shami Kapoor, the different Rishi Kapoor, the whole Kapoor family. So the daughter of a very major, iconic Hindu family, she is now the second wife. So this time he has decided not to convert her. So let's watch his video on this.
Again, that's the trouble with religion, really. It expects conversion. And I don't buy that. I don't believe that anymore.
So he's realized his mistake. Okay, so that's an interesting thing. And we don't have enough more details on what exactly the relationship is. A lot depends on Kareena, how strong a Hindu she is, how much she knows about Hinduism, and to what extent she will raise her own children. It's like he's given her the freedom, and now it's up to her to utilize that freedom. Is she prepared for it? Is she informed, educated, confident? We don't know. So I'm just telling you to the extent I do know. The third example, I want to show you a slide. I don't have a video. On the slide he's saying, but of course I had made it very clear that my kids will always follow only Islamic religion. Okay, so he marries a Hindu, and remember, note, he doesn't even say our kids. Okay, so this is a very chauvinistic, Islamic, of the three Khans examples I gave you, I would say the worst. And his wife didn't do a good job of negotiating these up front. She didn't do a good job of understanding, making the rules clear. She just got into it for whatever reasons and thought that it'll be all okay, maybe, but this is his view. So the moral of all this, of all these three examples and many other examples of this sort, is that don't leave things implicit, make them explicit. Don't be afraid, embarrassed, put it on the table and discuss that this is who I am. If you love me, you can't say I love you except for all the things that are in your heart. You have to say, if you love me, then love me as I am in my entire context, my whole being, the way I am. And this is an important part of my heritage, who I am, and I want to pass it on to my kids. So I will now turn to the second part of this show with my guest who's been waiting on Skype, Dr. Dilip Amin. Welcome, Dilip Bhai, to my show.
Thank you. It's my honor to be on this show.
Dilip Bhai, I've been explaining, as you heard, the synergy between the work I do, as discussed in Being Different, my book, and the work you've done. You've read my book, so tell us a little about it. Yes. And how it relates to your own work.
When I read your book, I found it that it's a really great example of comparing Abrahamic to the Dharmic faiths. And there are so many salient points, and what is being Dharmic, what is being pluralist, who is exclusivist, so many exclusivist ideologies in Judo-Christians. And when I'm an interfaith marriage consultant, my website is interfaithshadi.org, and I have consulted some 1,200 youths by now. And when I'm contacting them, every time I think of your book and your words, that these people have not learned it, the exclusivity is so much in their mind. Even though they, on the stage, they talk about, yes, we are open-minded, we are secular, we are pluralist, but it's really an issue. And that anyone in interfaith love should know it.
Yeah, I think for the benefit of the audience, I did not take up the specific issue of marriage and dating in my book.
Correct.
I talked about what are the differences and how these differences can create issues. Now what Dilip Bhai has done is taken one particular domain of life, namely dating and marriage in the United States, and applied these principles in great detail to figure out what will happen if you are naive, and you don't ask these questions, you're afraid, you're embarrassed, you're ignorant, whatever, or you're trying to be politically correct, and so you don't want to raise these issues, and how this will come back and haunt you later. So he's kind of telescoped in, drilled in on one particular aspect, which is dating and marriage. So I want to show something from your book, Dilip Bhai, which is statistics on how many marriages there are and so on. So Dilip Bhai, tell us what do these statistics indicate, these statistics, and how did you gather these statistics?
Yeah. First of all, on my website, there are 60% of people, they are coming from Indian or subcontinents, 10-15% from Malaysia, a lot of Middle East, Europe, and also America. So it's a worldwide experience what I am presenting here. And 1,200 youths over 12 years. So it's a lot of information. I did a survey using Macy's marriage registry, and I found that 38% of Hindus, Sikhs, and Jain marry to Abrahamic names, and that is Christian, Jews, and Muslims. Later on, I was curious, how about Muslims? And I thought that probably 5% of Muslims may be marrying outside these faiths. So there is a Muslim girl, Shefaq Maya. We got together, we both were interested, and we did the same kind of survey as I did it earlier. And to both of our surprise, we found that 45% of Muslims in America marry to a non-Muslim. Again, it's a subject, people we put it maybe of more educated and established community. In literature, it is known up 40%, or up to, for Jews, it's 58%. For Catholics, it's something like 40%. They marry outside their faith. So interfaith marriage is a part of our life. We have to learn with, yeah, go ahead.
So go ahead. So Dilip Bhai, I'll interject just to elaborate your findings and get more questions. So are the 38% dharmic people who marry outside and the 45% Muslims who marry outside, are these first generation or second generation? Are they new immigrants who are doing it, or is it mainly people who are here for many generations?
Yeah. Pew conducted a study earlier, Pew Research Foundation conducted a study, and they found some 5 or 10% of Hindus marrying outside that faith. The problem with their survey was majority, some 60% were immigrant Hindus or coming from India. In my survey, because I used the Macy's marriage registry, and I believe those are all American-born and established in Hindus we are talking about, and same for Muslims.
So can we conclude that immigrants who've just come are more likely to marry in their own community? Maybe only 5% or so, 10% will marry outside. But their children, who are the second generation, are likely to have this 38% in the case of dharmic people, 45% for Muslims. They're likely to marry outside. So they're getting assimilated, Americanized, and therefore they're losing their identity. That's what you want to say.
They are marrying outside that faith, that I can tell you. Losing identity is a different question. For example, 45% of people marrying outside their faith in Muslims, but we don't know how many are actually converting. So if once other party converts to Islam, then it is within faith marriage. It's not outside that faith. And it's possible that...
Yeah, no, that's please continue, because it's a very important point you just made. Very important point.
So if out of 45%, I don't have no clue, but I would expect, based on what I have seen on my website, at least 90% or if 99% of Muslims will want their spouse converted. No buts and ifs. So in America, it's possible, large number may be converting. So for Islam, it's a within faith marriage. It's not interfaith marriage.
So the important point that Dilip Bhai just made is that while the Muslim may be marrying a Hindu, the Hindu will be converting to Islam. Or while the Muslim may be marrying a Christian, the Christian will convert to Islam. So the married life is between Muslims. The person was a non-Muslim, while dating, but during nikah, the actual marriage ceremony, in the very beginning, before the marriage itself happens, they do conversion of the other person. So it looks like it's one big ceremony, but actually you've been converted. So I think this is a very important point you're making, that when Muslims marry outside the tradition, they are expanding the Islamic population because the other person is becoming a Muslim. This is not true in the case of Hindus who believe that all religions are the same, it doesn't matter, and things like that. So Hindus are, it would be interesting to find out of the 38% Hindus who married non-Hindus, what percent of those required their spouse to officially, formally convert and become a Hindu? I mean, that would be kind of an interesting exercise.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have those statistics. And one important point I have covered in my book, and that is, it's called love proceduralization. So people get in love for 1 to 10 years, average 3 years, and then they come to me on my website that now we start talking about marriage, and all of a sudden this problem comes. What can I do? So what I say is, after getting in love for 3 to 10 years, and then open up your mouth that now you have to convert, that's an ugly form of proceduralization. That's really, really sad. It really boils my heart.
So what you're saying, I guess, is that people should think of it early. People should think of it earlier in the relationship, because if you've been together for 3 years to 10 years, then you're about to marry and now you're thinking about it. So it's a done deal. I mean, what are you going to do now? I mean, it's almost like you know the conclusion you want, and now you just want to rationalize it. So you're not willing to swallow the truth and do something serious.
Yeah, correct, right, yeah.
So Dilip Bhai, the last point you have on your slide, I got this from your book, is that the divorce rate for interfaith couples is 50% higher. So tell me about it. How did you find this out, and what do you attribute it to?
In my book, I have given the references to that. Now, these divorce rates are very difficult to judge, because if somebody marries today at age 20 and may live till age 99, and there is no survey done to continuously monitor it. But in general, divorce rates in America are very, very high. There are so many statistics which says divorce rates are easily 30, 40, 50%. And there are reports clearly showing that in general, divorce rates are higher in interfaith marriage versus in within faith marriage. So I don't have clear statistics on it, but there are many published literature. You could check on Google. So
Dilip Bhai, here I want to say that you and I agree on what are some of the differences and what are some of the causes. I've explained in great length in my book, Being Different. I've also at the beginning of the show described that these are some problems that the issues that will come up, philosophical, ritual, because of dress habits, eating habits, family life, many kind of tension, many fault lines. The way I look at it is there are many fault lines that are buried initially because of the love blindness or love not blindness necessarily, but the joy of love. Then when that becomes old and fatigued and there is stress and tension, then that puts a lot of pressure on these fault lines, and there is a risk that things could fall apart. So given that this is a risk, statistically 50% more divorces, so we know we got a problem. So you are a doctor, you know we've got a diagnostic. So the diagnostic says this is the problem. So now what is your prescription? I want to know how do you prevent this? So let's hear you.
That is one very great point.
So Dilip Bhai, I got these points from your book. So please tell us what you think are the main issues and what is the solution?
The first solution, clear solution, is the education and knowledge. Hindu parents are such a big mistakes they make it that they assume that their child will never have an interfaith marriage. They will only marry to somebody from their own faith. And that's very, very wrong. They must assume that they will marry to Christian, Jews, Muslim, and they start getting prepared for it. If they do that, they will have so much knowledge, and in the end, if they marry within faith, great. If not, at least they will be much better prepared. Issues, let's say if you are marrying to a Jew, Christians, or Muslim, first of all those three faiths are very exclusive. It's fundamentally as per that scripture saying, and that Rajiv has covered extensively. In marriage, when you start dating, in the beginning, everybody will be proud in colleges saying that I'm a secular, I'm a pluralist, I'm open-minded, there is only one God, why to fight for it? But what you miss out is which one God? Is it your God or my God? That's the missing point. And that's something you have to ask as soon as you get into dating situations. Let's say Jews. Judaism is a very monotheistic religion. There is only one God. And they have certain rituals. For example, breast circumcision. The male child has to go through breast circumcision on 8th day. And then later on, there is a bar mitzvah and bat mitzvah. Now, if you don't have those things, they believe that there is some kind of something bad going to happen. And I'm asking a question in my book that is it a circumcision, is a science, or is it just superstition?
So Dilip bhai, let me just interject. For the benefit of viewers who are not familiar, breast circumcision is a certain Jewish ritual required circumcision. It's done by a rabbi, a priest, and it's a very important part of being a Jew, being marked in your skin, in your body as that you are a Jewish person because of that particular, the way that ritual is done. And the bar mitzvah later in life is like a coming of age, similar to like in some traditions we have a thread ceremony, things like that. So it also pronounces this person coming into adulthood as a Jew. So these are the two examples you gave of important rituals that Jews will not want to water down or do away with. Okay, so now continue, please tell us why are these a problem? So a lot of Hindus will say, "Arey, why is the problem? My daughter-in-law wears bindi, wears sari, and she sits and she eats a lot of mangoes also, and so she has no problem sitting in front of Ganesh. So why are you worried?" So what is your...
You have raised a superb question. And that was my problem in the beginning of my, when I was doing all those research and talking to my colleagues and friends and my friends, relatives close by. And everybody keeps on saying, "Dilip, there is no issue. Why you think this is an issue?" I mean, so because to point it out, that's why I started this website and collected the facts of 1,200 youths. You go on website today, on all those 1,200s are documented. And you see how they are being boiled. Now, I don't have problem with any of those, I call it labeling. This is their procedures. We have our rituals, and ideally, we both should do it, respect each other's and shares. And that's beautiful. That's exactly what I'm for. But at the same token, you have to know what they are coming from. What is in their mind? Doing all those things, does it mean you are now not going to be Hindu? Bar mitzvah requires so much time, something like 3 times a day, 3 times a week you have to go to bar mitzvah. Are you going to have any time left to go to Bal Vihar?
Yeah, so I think people should know what Dilip bhai is saying is Hindu marries a Jew, and the Jew says the kids will be having this circumcision ceremony and they'll be having bar mitzvah. So as the child grows up, there is a requirement to go 3 times a week to the synagogue for education, for training, before you are certified ready for the bar mitzvah. You can't just walk in and say, I write a check and do this ceremony. It's not like that. You have to prove to the rabbi that you actually learned all this stuff and then you are ready for it. So what the point is saying is that the child of this interfaith couple. By the time he goes ready for the bar mitzvah, he's got this mind full of Jewish ideas, and he's convinced he's a Jew because they require that he has to say that he's a Jew. And in the Jewish tradition, similar to all the other Abrahamic traditions, no other god, no other deity can be worshipped, and things of that sort. So this is your concern, that the process of, we are not concerned about that ritual, but the ritual requires him to disown and repudiate his Hindu ancestry. That is part of going through the process.
Let me add one very practical point which will convince my readers. Bar mitzvah, to be a Jew, according to Lisa Miller, it costs $120,000 a year in some situations. Meaning, to be a Jew, you have to pay something like 3 to 12% of your gross income to synagogue and all those. It's very expensive. So my question is, I don't have any problem you spend $100,000 or whatever, $10,000 you spend for Jewish cause. Are you going to spend the same amount of time and money for Hindu cause too? And if it is a 50-50 exactly, yes, I'm 100% for it. Go for it.
So let's put up the slide again and look at the Christian. Let's now what is your, so tell us about the Christian. What is your recommended solution? So in the case of Jewish, your book says you don't recommend this Jewish circumcision or bar mitzvah to be performed. And what do you recommend for Christian marriage?
I must say that Jesus is my hero. When I read the Bible, I found that he's so progressive minded, so open minded. He made so many changes. He says this circumcision is of no avail. Second commandment, who says I will punish you to 3 to 4 generations. He says, nope, love thy neighbors. He made so many changes. So Jesus is my hero. But the problem is the church. So what I say that follow Jesus, not the church. Church will want to have you baptism. And if not baptism for you, they will want a prenuptial agreement to be signed if you want to marry in the church. And the prenuptial will say that you will raise the child in Catholic faith only and will be baptizing. Now, okay, I don't have any problem with that, but you have to understand the legality. Let's say 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, there is a divorce. There is a child custody battle. Legally, when the marriage happened, both were agreed and signed off that the child will be Christians only. You will not get child custody because you're going to teach them the Hindu faith. So point is, it's not just baptism, taking a dip in water is not an issue. This labeling or these rituals have some deep meaning to it. And are you really willing to follow through it?
See, I have to give you an example, I have a friend who married a Mormon in Salt Lake City. And then there was an ugly situation because she was raising the kids to be totally denounce their Hindu heritage and all that. So they had a messy divorce. And she was able to prove in court that he is not fit to be the father. He cannot have custody because of his Hinduism. And there's an implied consent, even though he did not sign a prenuptial. But the fact that he submitted to a Mormon wedding, which he as a naive Hindu thought, oh, how does it matter? God is one, and they are going to say, oh, love each other. So whether I say it in front of the church or temple, who cares? How does it matter? He was one of those confused sort of fellows. And now the biggest trauma in his life is that the courts have ruled in favor of his wife that because it was a certain wedding, it was presumed to be under the laws. There are laws of the marriage covenant between man and wife as per that church. And since he has openly said he practices Hinduism, he is therefore not going to be fit to raise the kids or to be to have them too much in his influence. So they very seriously curtail how much access he can have, almost like he's a threat to the children. This is an example I know about. And this guy is this guy lives, I don't want to mention his name because personal matter. Yeah. He's an adjunct professor at Harvard. He's an economist. He's a very intelligent, learned man. He's often invited me. He's a very liberal type guy until all this happened. So this can happen to different sort of people. Yeah.
if I was a judge, I would exactly come to this conclusion. And that's what everyone should know, legality, because you are not taking just some baptism, you are committing for lifetime.
So I think people need to know that in the Abrahamic religions, there is a very defined law, the law. And so how you marry, what your identity is, has to do with legally you are a member of something and you agree to comply with their rules. And so when somebody marries a certain way, by default he has joined that organization, he is a member and he is required to comply with those rules. So in the event of a dispute, those are the rules that will be applied. In the event of a divorce between Hindus, courts will apply, what was the assumption according to Hindu law. In the case of Muslims, and so on. So in the case of an interfaith, unless it's clarified up front, you may be liable to a surprise. That's your point.
Yeah, correct. Very true.
So let's go back to the slide. And the third example has to do with Islam.
Before that, let me clarify one point, that all those people who comes to me or who gets into interfaith marriage, actually more are very highly educated and very, very intellectuals, very established people. So it really bothers me that you are so intelligent, so bargain hunters, you make millions of dollars. Why you cannot think of this some basic fundamental things? So let me get on the third point. Islam, one way I really honor and respect Islam, and that is they are very clear upfront, they are very honest. Versus with Christians and Jews, sometimes you get mixed messages. All the cases I deal with it, before marriage, the Muslim will make it clear that you have to be 100% Muslim and 0% Hindu. Are you ready or not? And yeah, they don't tell all those things during dating time, but before marriage, it gets very clear. And to the stage that they will want you to have a Shahadat oath, and Shahadat meaning you have to pronounce that now you are a Muslim. It says, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, meaning there is one God, Muhammad is the messenger of that God. So when you marry,
No, wait a second. Wait a second. It says there is one God. Doesn't it also say that one God is Allah?
Yeah, there is one God who is Allah.
Otherwise, if there's one God, I could say, fine, it's Krishna. I could say that. But there is only one God. That God is Allah. And his final prophet is Muhammad. So Muhammad supersedes all other prophets and so on. That is the point. That is the requirement. That is the requirement.
It's a must. You cannot have Islamic nikah wedding without this Shahadat conversion. There is not a single imam in this world will perform Islamic nikah wedding without conversion.
So just for clarifying for my audience, because we have large mixed audience of various kinds, nikah is the Muslim wedding ceremony. And what Dilip Bhai just said is, no imams are the ones who are supposed to carry out that wedding. No one will do this wedding, this Muslim wedding, without first a conversion process. Conversion process is like a contract, a kind of, you are basically saying that I have converted, disowned all my deities, disowned my God, disowned everything, and now I'm going to comply with all the rules and regulations of being a Muslim. That's what you are doing that. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So, you are converting, and once you convert, in most cases, I would say 90% cases, they will not want Hindu marriages. So you will be very clear upfront that what you are getting into it. So in that respect, I'm very happy for Muslims. They are upfront and clear. Only thing is, I wish those Muslims be a little more honest from the dating time, not after they bring up these conversion issues 3 or 10 years after dating.
So that's a good point. The rules of marriage should be more clear earlier in the relationship, not at the end. Yeah. One thing I want to tell you is I have many friends here whose kids married Muslim. Mm-hmm. Very subtle point. Hindus said we need a Hindu wedding, and Muslims said we need a Muslim wedding. So the Hindus tell all their friends that there will be both weddings. However, there is a very simple, subtle point. The Hindu wedding comes first with a lot of tamasha, mela, a big ambiance, and big event going on. Muslim wedding is done later, and therefore it supersedes the Hindu wedding. So when the Muslim wedding takes place, they are converting whatever you may have done yesterday. That is null and void. Done. Because in the Muslim wedding you denounce all religions, all allegiance, all of this and so on. So suppose, and I told this to a friend of mine who said, no, Rajiv, you're worrying there, we'll have both weddings and all that. So I said, okay, what's the sequence? He said, we'll have a Hindu wedding, you will be coming, 100 people, 200, 300 people will come, and then they'll have a simple Muslim wedding just to keep the Imam happy. I said, no. You go to them and say, we'll do it the other way around. You do the Muslim wedding first, and the next day we'll have a big Hindu wedding. He said, of course, there's no problem. I said, try it. He came back and said they're not willing to do it, because if you do the Muslim wedding first, then you have denounced all other faiths. You are not allowed to next day go and have a Hindu wedding.
That is correct.
So this is a... I didn't know these things, but I guess these...
You raised a very good point. Many times parents may be honest telling you what they're telling, because they don't know what their child has done it. For example, you marry in a church. I got a wedding invitation for a friend's daughter who married in a church. Right away I ran to church to confirm that what is this means. The church told me that yes, the Hindu will have to sign this prenuptial agreement. When I talk to parents, they say no, that cannot be possible. The point is the child will have to sign it. Child will not tell the parents what they are up to. So parents may be honest, but they are naive.
Right. So now, Dilip bhai, I want to give you some of my thoughts on this whole issue, just from my point of view.
Let me conclude.
Okay, please go ahead.
Let me bring one more point.
Sure.
I want to tell people that yes, I am not. There are plenty of within faith problems, within faith marriage problems, interfaith problems. Interfaith marriage could be really great, and that's not. I'm telling you against it. But to make an informed decision. If it is a Christian, tell them that I love Jesus. I will have a Christmas tree. We will have an Easter egg hunt. I will have a big party, but I will not baptize for church. So accept Jesus, but keep the church out of it, meaning no baptism. And you are all covered. If it is a Muslim, you will say, I will accept Allah. I will perform 5 times namaz. I'll start wearing hijab, and I'll be 100% Muslim. Except I will not utter the word Muhammad ever. And the Muslim will walk out of it. They say, forget it. Because for them, as much as they say Allah is everything, if you remove Muhammad, there is nothing much left.
Okay, so Dilip bhai, let me give you now my views, because for my viewers, I also want to, I have a distinguished guest. He's written a nice book, and I wanted him to explain, which he has done, his views. I want to give you my views also now. First of all, I feel that your approach puts a lot of responsibility, which is true, on the individual who's marrying or considering marrying and the parents. But you have not put so much emphasis on the Hindu priest, the acharya, the purohit, the priest in the temple, whereas from the Christian side, it's the Christian priest who's the expert on these things, the rabbi in the Jewish tradition and the imam in the Muslim tradition. So they have people who are professional experts. It's like a professional doctor like you are is an expert, when the person who's just doing home remedies on his own is not really educated in the same way. So I think there is a need to, in the United States or in Western countries where these things are happening on a large scale, there is need to train the priesthood, not to just do rituals and not to just do acharyas to teach, Bhagavad Gita and Upanishad and, all, which is fantastic, we ought to do that, but also to make them aware of social, political, cultural issues of this sort, because it's such a widespread trend and it's going to get even more so as time passes. So rather than avoiding the trend, they have to become experts. So in the case of church, they are training priests to become counselors, family counselors. and also rabbis. People often, when they have some family issue, they discuss with their rabbi or the imam or the priest, and they give advice, and they're trained. In the case of a temple, who would you go to? I mean, there are the trustees who are just regular people like us, running a temple, and then they have all the rituals done by a priest. But the priest is not that informed, not that well educated about American society. He's not going to be able to do all these things. So we need a certification program for interfaith counseling, interfaith coaching, dating and marriage coaching. And this is the sort of thing that, I would hope that a Hindu University of America and various groups that are trying to promote, they ought to create a certification program and bring maybe the HMEC, the Hindu Mandir Executive Committee, maybe they ought to create a thing where, batches of 50 or whatever priests can go and learn all this stuff. And you could be a teacher, giving them counseling on how to do it. Rather than doing it at the retail level, one client at a time, you should teach the priests, and then the priests already have enough clients. What do you think of that?
Superb idea, and that is a very missing. Let me give you one example from my website. It's that's the lady in northern India part. She was got in love. She's a really Shiva Bhakta, and she got somehow love with a Muslim guy, and he says, no, I love Shiva, and they start going to Mandir and all that. So then ultimately she got into love, and they had a wedding in Shiv Mandir. It's only 3 months into the marriage, she realized that to having a Hindu wedding was only way of taking her to bed. And later on, she had to convert to Islam and all that. Here, I truly blame and I asked her that, do you have any documentation? She says she had some photos, but the guy is run away with those photos, so she does not have that proof. And I say, how about Mandir priest? Did he keep any record? He says, no, we just give dakshina and we walk away. There is no documentation that these two people are married. So she says that it was only way of taking her to bed. That was the only purpose this Hindu wedding served to her. Meaning Hindus, they are getting trapped, and I blame to Hindu priests for not properly documenting and not understanding. They probably never ask who is this person.
So they are naive. The priests are naive. They're ignorant, and they are just
right.
Sort of village bumpkins. Some of them just come from some village into this great advanced modern society, and they don't want to rock the boat because they feel they're very fortunate being here. I mean, they have all these complexes. The priests in Hindu temples in North America got all kind of complexes. They are not with authority. The priest is supposed to be the authority person. The person who's got power, who's got clout in the eyes of the tradition, and he's the one. Like the imams have authority. The priest in a Christian church has authority. The rabbi has enormous authority. I mean, rabbi can decide and tell you this is the law, this is not the law, but the priest does not. It does not come across the persona of a person who feels empowered. So that's an issue that needs to be dealt with. Now, I also feel that your proposals. I would go further. I would go further than your proposals. Your proposals have to do with what should be our attitude towards their rituals and their symbolism and their beliefs. I would say that we need to insert some of our symbols, rituals and beliefs into the wedding and require that also. So I would say we will have Hindu deities in our house. We will worship these Hindu deities. We will give them respect. Now, if they say that according to their tradition, idol worship is banned, that is a showstopper. So it's not only what we think of Allah, what we think of Jesus, that's to be negotiated. But what do you think of Krishna? Or what do you think of Durga? And what do you think of Shiva? And what do you think that I am going to put images because I believe in bhakti? And what do you think of Om? And what do you think of chanting? And we'll have music, various mantras going on. What do you think of that? So you have to educate the Hindu not only on what should be his or her position vis-a-vis the other tradition, but what they have to ask the other person to position vis-a-vis our tradition. So these are what I call poison pills. Poison pills meaning I want you to eat this delicious thing called, we're getting married, but inside it I have put some requirements. And if you feel that those are poisonous, that we better find out right now. So and then I want you, my partner, to understand that I believe in karma and I believe in reincarnation. What is your view on that? And I believe in the whole theory and the whole philosophy of the duties of my children. So they'll cremate me and they'll have certain responsibilities to that. So it is not enough that we'll give a Hindu name, but then everything else has to do with what we believe of your faith. What about my faith? And what about your attitude towards my faith, and to what extent the kids will be educated in my faith? I think that part you need to add in your book, because it's not enough to negotiate using the other person's tradition. You also have to negotiate the status of our own tradition.
In my book, I have an article, and I'm saying proudly in the book that I'm an idol worshipper. Why not?
Yes, good.
Because who is not idol worshipper? Christians have thousands of statues, idols, Mary, Jesus, Father gods, Holy Ghost, so many polytheist beliefs. Islam, they have their own idols, Kaaba and Muhammad, and so everybody has. Jews have their own idols, Star of David and the candles, and so what's wrong being an idol worshipper? Like Swami Vivekananda says, if idol worshipping produce his own gurus, what's wrong being an idol worshipper as soon as you are a great human being of this world?
Yeah, so I would say it's good that they may have idols. Maybe some will say we don't, and the candle is not human face. Idol is when it's a human representation, and Kaaba is not a human representation. They'll argue.
Same for us.
Yeah, they'll say, no, but we have Krishna. It's a human face. I want the right to do that. I mean, the point is, yeah, I don't want to justify my tradition by saying you also have something similar. Whether you have or not doesn't matter. Okay. Whether you have images of the divine, or you don't believe in images of the divine, the point is I have a right to believe these images because they work for me. That's my ancestry, and I assert that right. Whether you have it or not doesn't matter to me. I would go strong, because why should we compromise the integrity and the sanctity of our faith by saying that, okay, you also have something similar, because then we are playing into their expertise on whether it's really idol, whether it's not idol. I wouldn't even go there. I would say that this is my requirement. And similarly, when I talk about karma, a lot of Hindus try to be apologetic and say, okay, it's similar to something you have. Whether it's similar or not, that's my faith. Because I think so what it requires is we have to fight the inferiority complex of our own people.
Good point.
We have to fight the ignorance of our own people. We have to fight the embarrassment that, oh, I don't want to rock the boat, I'm lucky to be here, and therefore, come on. We are productive members of society, especially the next generation. They are very powerfully placed. They should not have any such complexes. And this business that, and I think another problem is the priesthood is ignorant of social issues. They need to be much better educated, and the temple should invest in this. The Hindu Mandir Executive Committee should invest in this. Hindu University of America should start these kind of courses. We need people to understand that this problem is a serious problem.
Good point. Excellent. I agree. The thing is, when you take your own position, you'll be surprised that the other party really accepts it. For example, in my book, if you look the back part, I'm amazed that Christians, Jews, and Muslims, they are really writing. When they read it, they are so excited. And about my book, I'm so happy that more non-Hindus are excited about. I have still to see the excitement from Hindus. So they respect your feelings if you speak up.
Good, Dilip Bhai, thank you for this opportunity to discuss. You've opened a very important area of research. We are just scratching the surface. So much more needs to be done. We need to have conferences, panels, discuss on these matters, because these percentages have creeped up from the single digits all the way to 38% and whatnot in the last 20 years, and it's only going to get higher. So rather than avoiding the problem or hoping it's not there, or accusing other people, blaming other people, I think we need to get more actively involved ourselves. And we should do it with a Actually, our posture towards interfaith relations should be a very liberal, broad-minded, open-minded one, such that we come and say, okay, you can have whatever you want, but I need to have my deity, I need to have my images, I need to have my mandir, I need to have these ideas and beliefs, and I want to propagate them to my children. Now, are you willing to accept? So if the breakup in negotiation comes, the other side can break up, the other side can walk away. But Hindu is a very broad-minded person. We should neither acquiesce and succumb to their requirements, nor be sort of afraid to put our own demand on the table. That would be my posture.
Great point. In my book, I'm writing that promise less, produce more. So just like any business deal, marriage is just like a business deal. Tell them the worst case scenario just to find it out the truth. And once you have everything upfront laid down, and then make a decision whatever is right. So don't try to be wishy-washy and just go present worse than what you want it actually, and then settle for somewhere in the middle.
Well, thank you, Dilip Bhai, and to my followers and viewers. What I want to say is that what we have tried to do today is to stir up some issues and get you to think for yourself and investigate and examine these issues. We're not trying to feed you with one idea or another idea. We're just saying that there is a lot of data which my guest has organized, and this is compelling data, and people ought to understand this and get into these discussions with an open mind. And we want more harmony. We want more interfaith, cooperation, collaboration, marriages, whatever. But I think this should be done with open eyes and with lots of knowledge and lots of courage and confidence. With that, I will conclude. Thank you for watching. Namaste.